Today, I want to explore something that's not always easy to see when you're in it. Exploitation. What it looks like in relationships, why it's so hard to recognize when it's happening, and what it does to you over time. When we hear the word exploitation, we often think of something obvious, someone being scammed, for example, or someone working for free, or someone being manipulated for money. But in emotional relationships, especially with a narcissist, exploitation can be much more subtle and much more insidious. It doesn't come with a neon sign flashing, "You are being used." It comes disguised as love, as loyalty, as responsibility, even as family duty. It comes wrapped in phrases like, "If you really loved me, you'd do this for me," or, "You know I can't handle things the way that you can, honey," or, "You're the only one I can count on." Sound familiar? And often a phrase like that, it feels like love. But these are not requests here. They are obligations dressed up as needs. And over time, this dynamic, it conditions you to pour out all of your energy towards them just to keep the peace, to keep them satisfied, to keep the relationship from blowing up. You're not in a relationship here. You are in a hostage situation with flowers. Healthy relationships are based on mutuality, a balance of give and take. And that doesn't mean it's 50-50 every day here, but it does mean there's a sense of reciprocity. Both people's needs matter. Both people's feelings matter. But when you're being exploited, there's this silent trade that you never agreed to. Your role is to provide, give, fix, and soften their blows. Their role is to take, demand, and expect. And when you stop giving, or when you set a boundary, the entire foundation of the relationship starts to shake, because the dynamic was never built on mutual respect to begin with. So why do we allow this? Why do so many of us fall into these dynamics and stay in them far longer than we ever imagined? It often starts with conditioning, aka programming. Some of you were raised to believe that being good meant sacrificing yourself, that your worth is tied to what you can do for others. Or maybe you've been told or shown somehow that love has to be earned through service, compliance, or silence. And if you have a caring heart, if you're empathetic, if you hate seeing others suffer, you are exactly the kind of person an exploiter gravitates toward. Not because you're weak, but because you're strong in all the ways that make their life easier. You are a servant. Let that sink in. They target your strength, not your weakness. But the thing is that no matter how strong you are, exploitation takes a toll. Over time, it erodes your energy, your confidence, and your ability to even recognize your own needs. You start feeling drained, like you can never recharge. You can't sleep at night. You go about your days just putting one foot in front of the other. There's no future thinking. Think about that. There's no setting goals. The only goal is what's in front of you today. What can you do today to ensure that they'll be happy at the end of the day? What can you do to impress them so that they'll see you? Something that healthy couples don't have to consistently work on. Or at least they don't have to work so hard on. You're anxious because you're always anticipating the next demand. Are you going to be attacked today? Are you going to go through another 3-day round of silent treatment or stonewalling? Are you going to be walking on eggshells again, trying to avoid a landmine that will inevitably take place? That is so hard on the nervous system. You're invisible. Your needs rarely enter the conversation. Did I just say rarely? They don't ever enter the conversation, period. Conversations are one-sided. It's their conversations and their needs. How many times have you been put through the ringer with word salad? They're the ones who get to speak. And when it comes to your turn, you're cut off again with one more accusation. You're invisible even when there isn't a fight going on, even when they're in a good mood, because they're on their social media getting supply elsewhere. They already have lots of supply from you. You take care of them. So now they can get even more supply from others. The more the merrier, right? They just keep on filling and filling. And the scariest part, you start to normalize it. You tell yourself that it's just how relationships are, or if I just try harder, it'll get better. But deep down, you know that something's off. You feel the resentment creeping in. You feel the exhaustion that no amount of sleep can fix. Here are some clear signs. The relationship feels like a job. You're always on, always responsible, always fixing. Your needs, they are dismissed or minimized. Whenever you express discomfort, they twist it into guilt or blame. There's a constant imbalance of power. They decide, you comply. Their feelings dictate the entire mood. You feel guilty for saying no, even when you're completely drained. You feel that you have no right to refuse. You're losing yourself, your goals, your rest, your joy, all pushed to the background. When we talk about exploitation, it's easy to think of it in vague terms. Someone using you, taking advantage of you. But with a narcissist, exploitation becomes an art form for them. It's not always obvious at first because they disguise it under charm, under love, under friendship, or even under the banner of family loyalty. Take money, for example. Narcissists, they have an interesting relationship with money when it comes to yours. They'll borrow from you without hesitation, often framing it as a small favor or an emergency that only you can help them with. You're the only one that they can count on. You're the only one that they can trust. And maybe they promise to pay it back next week, and next week never comes. And if you dare to ask about repayment, suddenly you're the selfish one. You're accused of caring more about money than about them. So they twist your sense of fairness until you start questioning your own boundaries. Aren't they nice people? But money is just the beginning here. It's the everyday things also, like your vehicle. They'll take it without asking, or worse, they'll ask in a way that leaves you no room to say no. You're going to get it back with an empty tank, crumbs on the seat, papers all over the place, dirt, maybe even a dent that somehow isn't their fault. I mean, nothing's ever their fault, right? And if you so much as mention it, brace yourself, because now you're too controlling, you're too dramatic, or you're too ungrateful for everything that they supposedly do for you. They exploit relationships also. Your friends aren't just your friends. They're potential sources of attention and admiration for the narcissist. They're going to even charm your circle of friends, sometimes more than they charm you. You're going to notice subtle things like how they always want to be the center of conversation when your friends are around. And if you're not careful, they're even going to use those friends as flying monkeys later, turning them against you when it suits their narrative. And then there's the most insidious form of exploitation, emotional vulnerability. Narcissists, they have a radar for fear. They'll find out what keeps you up at night, your financial worries, your health concerns, your longing to be loved, and they're going to use those things as leverage. So if they know that you're afraid of abandonment, they're going to dangle their presence like a reward and then threaten to withdraw it as punishment. If they know that you struggle with self-worth, they'll cut you down just enough so that you keep trying to prove yourself to them. It makes them feel really good. It empowers them. They build themselves up on your dime. Now, if that isn't exploitation, then I don't know what is. They even exploit the very things that make you kind, your empathy, your compassion, and those qualities that should make you feel proud of who you are. They become weapons in their hands. You'll find yourself doing things that you never thought you'd do, bending over backwards, sacrificing your own peace just to keep them happy. That's exploitation. And when you're drained, when you have given everything and still feel like it's never enough, they'll look at you like you're the problem. And that's the cycle. That's the game. And the worst part, they're going to convince you it's normal. So you continue feeding them dinner, giving them money, whatever it is that they need, fixing their vehicles. Let's take a look at exploitation in families and friendships. When narcissists are in your family, the exploitation runs deep because it hides under the disguise of love. They'll say, we're family, you should want to help. But what that really means is your boundaries, they don't apply to me. They're going to manipulate with phrases like, we're family, we should have each other's backs. And you'll see it in a way that they expect you to drop everything for them. And if you say no, you're selfish. If you don't sacrifice your own needs, you don't care enough. It's never about mutual support. It's about control and entitlement. And then parents who are narcissistic, they often exploit their own children emotionally and financially. They'll guilt trip you for growing up, for moving out, for wanting independence. If you succeed, they're going to find a way to take credit for it. If you struggle, they'll remind you of how much they've done for you. How many of you have heard that one? Like love was a debt that you could never repay. They'll even use your childhood vulnerabilities against you. Maybe you told them something about your childhood, something that scared you, and years later, and I'm not talking about your parents, I'm talking about partners. Years later, they're going to weaponize it during an argument just to break you down. That's not love. A person who loves another does not cross lines like that. That is emotional blackmail. And then there's the favor chains where they constantly need rides, they need money or your time. But when you need help, suddenly they're busy. Or worse, they make you feel ashamed for asking. This isn't generosity. This is exploitation dressed up as family loyalty. And then if it's a friend or a brother or a sister, they'll use your childhood vulnerabilities against you. Maybe you told them something about your childhood, something that scared you, and years later they weaponize it during an argument just to break you down. That's not love. A person who loves another does not cross lines like that, period. That is emotional blackmail. And then there's the favor chains where they constantly need rides, they need money or your time. But when you need help, suddenly they're busy. Or worse, they make you feel ashamed for asking. This isn't generosity here. This is exploitation dressed up as family loyalty, if that's your sibling, for example, or a cousin. And friends can be just as manipulative if they have narcissistic traits. They'll borrow your clothes, your money, your time, always with a promise to return the favor. But somehow, that day never comes. They'll guilt you into being their emotional dumping ground. But the second that you need someone to lean on, they disappear. They're nowhere to be found. Or they turn your vulnerability into gossip because your pain feeds their sense of importance. I just don't have time for this. She drains my energy every time. I just recently dropped a one-sided relationship. Time and time again, it was always about her. And at the drop of a hat, I was always there for her every time that she needed to talk about her stuff, which was always. Whether that was because she was upset about something and she needed a shoulder, undecided and needed advice, or excited and needed to gloat. I was there. But time and time again, if I needed to talk or if I was happy about something and I wanted to share something that I had just learned, for example, she wasn't interested. She would immediately turn the conversation back to her. And at first, I took it all with a grain of salt, knowing that she's definitely self-absorbed, but I enjoyed her company. But a day came where this time it was me going through something serious, and I really, really needed someone to talk to. And when I saw her behavior towards me, when I tried to talk to her about it, I knew in that moment that accepting such a behavior would mean that I wasn't respecting myself. So in that very moment, I cut the relationship off completely. And with grace. I respected self, and I felt a sense of freedom. Narcissists, they exploit because they feel entitled to you, your energy, your resources, your kindness, and they'll use anything that they can. They'll use your empathy, your fear of conflict, even your love, because they know that you care. And that's what makes this so painful. The very qualities that make you a good person becomes tools in their game. It becomes food on their table. And just knowing this isn't going to be enough, because shrugging it off will further harm you. It has serious effects. When someone is constantly exploited, whether emotionally, financially, physically, or psychologically, it creates a cascade of negative effects on their mental health, self-perception, and even physical well-being. There's an emotional and psychological impact here. There's chronic stress and anxiety being used repeatedly keeps the nervous system in a heightened state of vigilance. The body is constantly expecting harm or loss. There's also erosion of self-worth. The message that they internalize is, I'm only valuable for what I can give, not for who I am. Then there's shame and self-blame and self-hatred. They might wonder if they're too weak or too nice, leading to harsh self-criticism. And then there's emotional numbness or disassociation. Over time, the victim or the victims might even disconnect from their feelings as a survival strategy. And then we have the behavioral changes. People pleasing and fawning. To avoid conflict or abandonment, they might try harder to satisfy others. Isolation. Feeling drained or humiliated can cause withdrawal from healthy relationships. Difficulty setting boundaries. Repeated exploitation can rewire them to think boundaries equals rejection or danger. There's physical consequences also. There's chronic stress symptoms. There's headaches, fatigue, digestive issues, high cortisol levels, sleep problems. Rumination and hypervigilance makes restful sleep harder. Weakened immune system. Long-term stress impacts immune response. You also have cognitive effects, learned helplessness. A belief forms. No matter what I do, I'll be taken advantage of. Distorted reality. They may normalize exploitation and stop recognizing abusive behavior as wrong. Indecisiveness and fear of speaking up. Constant exploitation conditions them to avoid asserting themselves. And then the list goes on. I mean, is there not already enough as it is? Guys, this is serious stuff that we keep pushing aside, but the long-term outcome, if unchecked, can lead to depression and anxiety disorder and illness. CPTSD from repeated relational trauma. Identity erosion, losing sense of self because their life revolves around others' needs. Self-sabotage, feeling undeserving of good things, so they unconsciously push them away. The longer you stay in this dynamic, the smaller you become in your own life. Your dreams shrink, your sense of self fades, and one day you wake up realizing that you've built an entire existence around someone else's needs, while your own has gone unmet. That isn't love. This is survival in a system designed to keep you giving and them taking. So I'll ask you again, are you being exploited? Not because I want to judge you here, but because awareness is the first step towards change. Exploitation thrives in the dark. It grows in silence. But the moment that you see it for what it is, something shifts inside of you. And I'm not here to tell you what to do next. That's your journey. But I will say this, you deserve reciprocity, you deserve peace, and you deserve to feel that your needs matter, because they do. So thank you for sitting with me through this conversation here. I thought it was really important to talk about. And if this resonated with you, know that you're not alone. Take a deep breath and remember, you are worth more than what someone can take from you. Take care, and we shall see you in the next video. Bye for now.